Hello guys, welcome to lesson 1.8. Yesterday we looked at adding and subtracting integers, and today we're going to look at multiplying and dividing. But first let's do a little bit of review for adding and subtracting. This may seem like something that should be pretty easy, but it's definitely a good building block for you to have, so it's always good to review. 7 plus 3, same sign, they are both positive, so that means when I add these together I'm going to get 10. Next one, 29 minus 16. Since they're different signs, I'm going to subtract them and keep the sign of the bigger number, and that's going to give me 13. You can be writing these down in your notes as well. Negative 6 plus 7. Different signs, a negative and a positive, so I'm going to subtract them. 7 minus 6 is 1. And then the sign of the bigger number is a plus, so it's going to be positive 1. Negative 15 plus 20. Different signs again, so we're going to subtract, and we're going to keep the sign of the bigger number, so it's going to stay positive. Negative 10 plus 4. Different signs. I'm going to subtract them, and then I'm going to keep the sign of the bigger number. This time 10 is bigger than 4, so I'm going to keep the negative. So it's negative 6. Negative 14 minus 14. Same sign, so I add my numbers. 14 plus 14 gives me 28, and then I'm going to keep the sign, so it'll be negative 28. Negative 13 plus 7. Different signs, subtract the numbers, and keep the sign of the bigger number. Negative 9 plus 6. Subtract, keep the bigger sign. 17 minus negative 8. Now remember we said that if we have two signs next to each other, we want to rewrite it as one sign. So two negatives make a positive. When I add those numbers together, I'm going to get 25. Negative 5 plus negative 4. I've got negative 5. Positive and a negative make a negative. Now they have the same sign, so I add the numbers and keep the sign. 27 plus negative 24. When I rewrite this with one sign, it'll be a minus sign. And then I subtract those and get 3. 8 minus negative 8. Two signs that are the same, so I rewrite that as a positive. 8 plus 8, which equals 16. When I rewrite this one, I've got a positive and a negative. That makes a negative. Same sign, so I add my numbers and keep the sign, so negative 9. Negative 3 minus negative 3. Two negatives make a positive. So now when I do negative 3 plus 3, that's actually going to give me 0. 3 plus negative 12. Positive and a negative make a negative. And so I'm going to subtract these. 12 minus 3 would give me 9. And then I would keep the sign of the bigger number, so negative 9. Now here's a challenge. This one's got 3 numbers involved. So we've got 12 plus 23 plus negative 5. I'm going to go ahead and rewrite this as one sign. And I'll get 12 plus 23 minus 5. And then I'm going to do it one step at a time from left to right. 12 plus 23 would be 35 minus 5, which would give me 30. So when we're multiplying or dividing integers, our rule is if the signs are the same, the product or quotient is positive. Product is the result that we get when we multiply. And quotient means the result when we divide. So if the signs are the same, the product or quotient is positive. If the signs are different, the product or quotient is negative. The product or quotient is negative. Here, I'll get those words out of the way so you can read it. In other words, another way to summarize this, and these are in your notes, if you have a positive times a positive, it's going to be positive. If you've got a negative times a negative, it's also a positive because the signs are the same. If you have a positive times a negative, we get a negative, and a negative times a positive is a negative. And we saw all of these happen over here. So for example, right here, we had a negative and a negative. Those made a positive. Just below that, we had a positive and a negative. Those made a negative. So we're going to look at what basically, are the signs the same or are they different? So let's do some practice. We've got 72 divided by 9. So let me ignore the signs until the end. That's usually what I do. So I'm going to do 72 divided by 9, which would give me 8. And then I'm going to decide if my sign is positive or negative. My signs are different. I have a positive and a negative, so it's going to make a negative 8. Here I have 2 times 1, which is 2. And I have a negative times a positive, so that is a negative. 1 times 6 gives me 6. And 2 negatives, a negative times a negative, is a positive, so it's going to be positive 6. When it's a positive 6, I can write this, but really I don't need to, because if we don't write the plus sign, we just assume that it's positive. So it's really better just not to write it. 16 divided by 2 would give us 8, and then negative times a positive is a negative. Let's look at a few more examples. 48 divided by 8 would give me 6, and then negative times, or divided by a positive is a negative. 7 times 3 is 21. Positive times a negative is a negative. 54 divided by 6 is 9. Negative divided by a positive is a negative. 3 times 9 is 27. And negative times a negative is a positive. All right. Here's your homework for today. Pretty short lesson, just a lot of practice with multiplying and dividing. Notice that you do have some odd numbered problems in there because you're doing all of these. It's not just the evens. So check those odd numbered problems with Bob and see how you're doing. If you have any questions, please let me know.